who's in our urban design team. We've been working with Council for a number of years now in developing the structure plan for Horsham South. So we're really excited to be here to be able to give you an update on where we're at to ensure that you've got all of the information to be able to make a submission to the project if that's what you're interested in doing. So before we sort of jump into the topic of today's webinar, I just thought I'll give you a brief update on where we're up to in the project. So we'll just go to the next slide. Perfect. So Council's commissioned the preparation of a structure plan for Horsham South, and there's been several phases for this project that have predated where we're up to now. So you might have been involved in some of the previous community consultation phases, but we're really coming to the tail end of the project now, and we're going to be preparing or getting into the drafting of the structure plan document. But before we do that, we're really wanting to test the land use directions through the draft future urban structure, which is the focus of today's presentation and the consultation process. So just to give you a quick overview or update on what a structure plan is. So the structure plan for Horsham South is really intended to provide a high level blueprint for the long-term development of the area. So as an example, when council's receiving things like planning applications at the moment, there's no, I guess, overarching document that's guiding the assessment of those. So the intent is the Horsham South Structure Plan will provide that long-term vision to ensure that future decisions in this area are really aligned to the direction that that document provides. So the sorts of topics that the structure plan will provide direction on is the sorts of housing types and densities that we'll see across Horsham South into the future, the transport and movement network, including future cycling and walking paths, where you might see future open space areas, how stormwater will be managed across the area, future community facilities, as well as sort of new commercial land and activity centres, industrial land and employment uses, as well as things like heritage protection and biodiversity and environmental values. So it's really about providing that high level guidance on these key important topics. So why does Horsham South need a structure plan? So as I mentioned, at the moment, there is a lack of that overall coordinated framework. And that means that there might be some confusion from developers or landowners about what the expectations are around planning applications or decisions that council's making in this area. So the structure plan, I guess, will ensure that there is that vision and, we're proactively thinking about some of these challenges and addressing them in that holistic way. So there's certainty for you as community members, as well as developers and government agencies about what the expectations are for the future of Horsham South. In terms of the area that the structure plan will consider, so the study area is identified in that black line. So it's essentially bound by the Wimmera River in the north, the Burnt Creek in the east, Kleins Road in the south, and then the Mackenzie River in the west. So there's a number of, I guess, existing land uses that are occurring in this broader area, which will be considered, and we'll be trying to understand, I guess, the key issues that are occurring across these area and how we can set some direction to address these into the future. So I guess there's also some of the key transport networks that form or run through this area, including the two key highway road networks. We've obviously also got Haven as a key community hub, and we've got the proximity to the central Horsham area as well. So the purpose of today's webinar, now I've sort of gone through a bit of that project background, is to introduce you to the draft future urban structure for Horsham South. So this is the plan that's really subject to the community consultation process that's underway. And I'll talk in a bit more detail in a moment about what the purpose of a future urban structure is, but in today's webinar, we'll just give you a brief overview of some of the work that's completed to date. Jacob will run through some slides that will sort of set out how we've gone through a kind of a process of understanding all of the site information to develop up the future urban structure. Then we'll talk briefly about what the next steps are and how you can get involved. So what is a future urban structure? So this plan is essentially the first kind of concrete step in us shaping up the structure plan. So we've now released this plan, which provides high-level direction on the future land uses that we anticipate for Horsham South. And we're really keen to get your feedback on this before we get into the more detailed process of actually drafting up the structure plan document. So we're identifying what the possible residential densities might be across this area, what the supporting stormwater drainage management infrastructure might be to support this, and identifying different components of the area in terms of supporting walking and cycling paths and open space networks as well. So this is, I guess, the opportunity to let us know if we've got those overarching land uses right, as well as any ideas that you might have on how we might best implement these directions as we move forward in drafting the more detailed structure plan document. So just a really quick overview, I guess, in terms of what's happened to get us to this point in the project. So some of you might have been involved in some of the previous consultation processes that have taken place. So the most recent document that was released that went through a consultation process was the Emerging Options Discussion Paper. So this identified a number of strategic directions and associated actions that needed to be addressed in terms of progressing to the point we're at now. So essentially, we've gone through and we've addressed and investigated those actions, and we're now at the point of developing that more certain land use plan, which is the future urban structure that we're talking about today. We've also, as well as talking to community members, we've also had a number of discussions and engagement sessions with government agencies who obviously have an interest in this area as well. And there's also been a number of technical studies completed. So Mesh has been partnering with other consultancy firms who have expertise in various other topics to get their expert opinion into this process. So these technical studies have related to industrial land supply, potentially contaminated land. We've got some advice around ecology and environmental values, as well as a preliminary high-level drainage assessment for the area. So those are the studies that are complete. We've also got a number of studies that are underway, which we have preliminary findings from, but we'll be working to finalise these ones in the new year as we look towards drafting the structure plan. So these relate to servicing, bushfire, traffic and transport, as well as councils leading the development of some more detailed drainage work. So that's really it in terms of the sort of background and where we're at now. And I'll throw over to Jacob now, who's going to talk you through the development of the future urban structure.
Thanks, Emily, and hello, everyone. Thanks for letting me introduce this to you tonight. It's a pretty exciting step for the community in Horsham South. So as what's just popped up on the screen there is the 5 directions that is a direct continuation of some of that work in that emerging options paper that went out a few years back now. We've progressed those. We've taken that as what we've heard from the community and from the stakeholders as to what is going to drive or be the backbone behind the structure plan, and we want to incorporate those in the future urban structure tonight as well. So we've used those 5 points to frame the understanding of the FUS in these next slides. So we'll start with the first one, which is coordinated growth that respects the existing character of the area. So just showing up here is that direction, which mostly relates to the residential direction and where we're thinking that residential growth will occur in Horsham South. A large part of this direction is about providing that focus to development. So the idea is that residential growth should be coordinated around Horsham Central Activity District and Haven Community Activity District, which is those two circles you see on the screen there. The lifestyle residential allotments are really proposed within that 1 kilometre to 2 kilometre of Haven Activity District as a strategic proposition to ensure optimal use of the school and the sports reserve and other facilities around the Haven Community Activity District, as well as obviously the growth that's occurring to the south of the Wimmera off the back of Horsham Central Activity District as well. Small lifestyle residential allotments are proposed to the northwest of Haven. I might just get my cursor up to point around for you at the same time. So around this north-south area, I'll get it a little bit bigger than that. This area here. The reason for that proposed increase in density is really to start to create opportunities for improved connectivity to and from the Wimmera River for the community and around Haven, and also deal with some of the larger fragmentation in lots. It's also within that catchment area that we've just discussed. And lastly, it also helps to release some land for infrastructure such as drainage and services to be able to unlock some more central development in that area. Rural residential lots are proposed within the sort of broader 2 kilometre catchment range, largely in keeping with the existing character of the area, with this area to the east of Haven being 1 hectare to 2 hectare size lots, and the structure plan proposes to maintain that sort of size in this area over here. But perhaps to the south of that, we've got the 4 to 10 hectares area, which is also in keeping with what's currently proposed. Residential development is expanded in the urban area around the Wimmera River, which is just along this area here. You can sort of see the general residential has been extended in the more urban type densities. It's a fairly minor extension where it's gotten a bit pinched by the flooding. So we've taken account of the area required for additional widening of the Wimmera River for flooding constraints. Where it's getting a bit pinched here, we have allocated a lower 1 to 2 hectare area that also we'll talk a bit in a second about how that also helps with some of the transitional issues regarding the industrial land as well. Perhaps some of the new things that's popped up more recently is this area in here, which is a 2 to 4 hectare low density area that's been proposed as part of the structure plan. This is an area that was kind of left over as farmland between the industrial and what we're proposing the conservation reserve. So that's a new one that we're proposing to kind of complete the development area. And we've also some new areas up around Cameron Road area as well. That is a continuation of the Horsham settlement area. Again, some low density opportunities there for 2 to 4 hectare developments. Beyond the 2 hectare boundary, which you sort of see here, because of that overarching objective of trying to really focus urban density around the existing community infrastructure, such as the school and the reserve, we have proposed that the area way outside the 2 hectare area where there is already an established agricultural purpose is to actually pull that back and encourage that to remain as more of an agricultural purpose, and refocus where perhaps residential would have been allowed here in the present day, refocus that to occur somewhere more central where the future residents would have better access to amenities and services. We sort of see the overarching principle of protecting the character of Haven is really important. And you can sort of see here too that the lot sizes being proposed are still very large in scale and in keeping with the Haven character. Perhaps the difference here is this area in the middle is potentially contemplating down to 2,000 square meters, but somewhere in that range of 2,000 to 10,000, which is a change in this central core area. However, that is very similar to the developments adjacent to the golf course already. And so we sort of see that as a continuation of that particular character type heading further to the east. We also sort of see that you can sort of see in the plan as you read it for yourselves in the future that there's 6 different housing types that are being proposed, which provide that larger diversity of housing through the Horsham South area, and be a bit clear about what kind of character those are. And the future structural plan will really go into describe those different precincts as well. All right, we'll carry on to the next one here. This just helps to really clarify where those changes are happening in a more simplified way. So you can sort of see here that core area is where the increase is occurring, but it's a fairly modest increase as well in and around the Haven Primary School. And what we've sort of see on to the east here is that the proposed density is really proposed to match what's already been delivered, but there is a zoning implication there. So we're looking at 1 to 2 hectare lots being what's preferred in this area here. The bits you'd note was what I talked about before, the decrease and the decrease here from what is effectively rural living to so low density to a 2 to 4 hectare as it is on that peripheral, and the one here we've already talked about. You can sort of see too, these other increases are actually due to a farming zone being transferred into a residential zoning for development. So hopefully that just gives you a bit of a clearer picture. The remaining balance of the orange is where no actual change is occurring to the density or the lot size that we're anticipating in those areas. Right, on to strategic direction number 2, appropriate interfaces between land uses. I think something is, oh, there we go. So what we have here is looking at some of the interfaces where we've put a little bit more effort into understanding how we might transition from lower densities to more increased densities. You can sort of see here that as we transition from 1 hectares through to the larger lots, we've implemented a 2 hectare minimum sort of buffer area along Mackey's Road. We also have a 1 hectare area here, which is largely just in keeping with what's already developed, which is a buffer between those 2 to 10,000 hectare lots and the larger ones. And again, this one up here is a transition to the farming area from the low density livestock character lots. The industrial areas that already exist are south of Plumpton Road and also in the Burt Creek industrial estate. We have to look really carefully into the transition from them to the residential areas. And there is proposed to be some expansion of those, both of those estates. If we just focus firstly on South Plumpton Road, there's a increase of the industrial area to the west into the enterprise precinct. Looking at that one a bit more closely, the approach there is to provide guidance on the kinds of industrial uses that would be appropriate on the edges of the site to mitigate any adverse impacts to future residents. We're also looking to provide that low density residential transition between the industrial and the general residential area, which will provide a little bit more space in those residential lots to offset and set back buildings so they're not directly fronting that industrial. And we've also got a provision for a landscape buffer treatment, which will be more detailed in the structure plan, which will include a impetus to provide additional planting and tree screening and those kinds of treatments. That occurs both along the north side of Plumpton Road as well as sort of south of the Horsham transfer station as well as that approach. The other area to think about too is we've made a intentional position to retain the farming zone surrounding the Burnt Creek industrial estate. that provides a really, has been and will continue to provide a really good transitional buffer. And the size of those lots are considered of enough scale to continue as a viable agricultural land. So as we pull it together, you can sort of see that the total land use arrangement here has really meant that we've got a bit more of a direction and a focus and a vision for how those land uses will intertwine and connect to each other. Some other things to quickly touch on before I move on is around the golf club is there is a proposed, and the sewage treatment plant. There's a significant sort of transitional zone too between the residential area along the west and the farming area, being a proposal for a fairly significant conservation reserve that will sort of tie into and connect with the golf course, both on the north side and the south side. So we see that as a really important transitional zone to effectively forming the western edge of Horsham South. We'll carry on to strategic direction number 3, which is interconnected transport network that is continuous, safe and efficient. So we start out by looking at the arterial road network through the study area and understanding its impact. And noting that these really form those gateways into Horsham South, and we will be providing some more detail in the structure plan about how those particular sites may be embellished and enhanced to really provide a welcoming arrival for visitors and the local community as well. Potential locations for new local road river crossings align with the Horsham Urban Transport Plan, which I think should be popping up before. Apologies, there's a little bit of a glitch. So I'll just use my cursor. So these two ones here. So this project is concurrently working with that urban transport plan. So we're tying in and aligning with that project and waiting on advice as towards outcomes regarding the location of these crossings. But we've had mind to where they may occur, either on Bennett Street or Drummond Street into the future. The plan also looks at a proposed local road connections or key local road sections considered that might be required to unlock the development of land. Now, this doesn't specify, it's really important to understand it won't specify every single new road. The idea is that the plan will only specify roads that will have a net community benefit or be necessary to coordinate an effective movement transport network. So you can sort of see here, these are marked as those key ones to really let the community and all the individual landowners understand where they may be required to deliver a connected road. There will be other roads required between them to get access to new lots, but that'll be at the discretion and the flexibility of the developer. A lot of work has been done to expand the already well-used and I think exemplar cycle trail network around Horsham South, and I think the future is pretty exciting to see how it may be expanded and enhanced. So you can sort of see, I won't be able to go into detail here, but I encourage you to look at the plan in your own time to sort of see the number of new these all dotted connections that are being proposed to interconnect Haven through to the Wimmera River and create some really, I think, really great circuits to and from and around Horsham South, connecting up to Horsham CAD as well. A key point of that I will mention too is we're utilising as much of the old canal reserves to achieve some of those new great connections. At the center of those connections are what we're calling the amenity corridors, which are these two green arrows that have popped up on the screen just now. These are probably the focus of where we're trying to create a corridor that's full of a biodiversity network, cycle trails, walking trails, a continuous and I guess encouraging walk to be able to encourage active transport between Haven and the CBD area. We can sort of see this one here, and it starts to come together as to why some of this density is being proposed to be able to unlock this really great connection into the future, up into the main part of town. We've also have the one here that will loop round to the east and up to the north, connecting into the eastern parts of the new development as well. So really pretty excited about that opportunity for the community to have those, I guess the focus of the key amenity connections and making sure they connect to local parks and the school, etc. There's some, it's pretty hard to note on this, but there is some key intersection upgrades which will be noted in the structure plan too, which will be further progressed and detailed in the structure plan. To help improve, the current congestion where it's occurring, particularly along the Henty Highway intersection to the Western Highway. Just sort of tailoring into some really good work that's already been underway for a couple of years too. We'll also be including some public transportation upgrades and looking at where the road network will be provided in a way that's suitable for buses and other future transport opportunities. All right, moving on to strategic direction number 4, accessible social and community destinations. So again, the gateways will play a really large part of that welcoming aspect of Horsham South. So those are notated here as well. Those future conservation reserves along that western boundary will protect the area within the cultural sensitive areas, and we're looking forward to working with the traditional owners regarding how that site can be best utilised. There's also potential as part of that for a cultural education centre somewhere where this asterisk is, and that's subject to obviously further work there. But that's a really exciting opportunity to tie into and expand on the already amazing Wimmera River public space, and having that tailor down to the south and connecting down to the golf course presents, I think, a really exciting opportunity. Another thing to note is there's potential for a local convenience centre at the intersection of Old Hamilton Road and Plumpton Road, just up here. That's just something we wanted to notate as an opportunity for some, might be some minor conveniences like a grocery store or something like that to service the broader community. And so we just want to encourage that opportunity. Housing around Haven is consolidated to facilitate sufficient demand to justify potentially in enhancing the school hub area, whether that might mean there's enough density to think about like a cafe or a small retail offering around the community activity district. That's sort of the objective there, is to provide more economic rationale for people to invest in to the community with commercial and retail uses where it's appropriate and at appropriate scale. New high quality open space connected to the Wimmera River and integrated with new existing subdivisions too. So you can sort of see this dotted green area is all the expanded parkland that will occur along Wimmera, and that starts to then bleed down to the south through a new wetland and corridor network that is being expanded, and sort of through here too. You can sort of see these splashes of green that occur throughout the plan, where we're hoping to release that as public open space, and in some cases that's encumbered open space as drainage, but we'll utilise a lot of it to create little local nodes and nooks for the community to enjoy. We talked a little bit about the amenity corridor links already, but you can sort of see even better here how that will connect and intertwine with all these little pocket parks. So you have that string or that ribbon that's connecting all these spaces together. Something else to note too is where we haven't been able to put an open space over the significant vegetation areas that was provided to us by our professional consultants. We've looked at providing a protection overlay, which is sort of this green overlay here, and some of it over here too, where there's areas within those really large lots that we'd like to protect into the future within private property. So that's definitely worth understanding those biodiversity protection areas and how we'd like to protect the vegetation into the future. I keep on going to the last strategic direction, which is efficient use of existing and new services, drainage, water and sewer. So you can sort of see here a simplification of how the drainage network may look, and this is something, as Emily's already noted, this is sort of stage one. There will be a stage two, so please expect this one to be refined and changed into the future, but you get a general idea of how it might work, with the blue dashed lines here representing sort of piped outcomes, and the green areas being drainage corridors to wetlands. So we've really looked into depth to look at how the stormwater and flooding can be mitigated and improved in the area and provide for those future developments as well. But at the same time, where possible, create that open space amenity as part of that network, and not pipe everything, but also create some linear waterway corridors. This one here is just a simplification of areas that will be connected or proposed or being considered to be connected to wastewater or sewerage, which is that orange, light orange colour. And pretty much that relates to areas less than 1 hectare in size is what's being considered. The council preference for the structure plan will encourage or propose that everything within the structure plan boundary or residence within the structure plan boundary would be connected to potable water. So that's the whole sort of area. There is 3 new east-west services corridors comprising a common waste trunk main, including water, electric, as well as new waste mains along Mackey's Road, Halls Road, Plazas Road, and Osborne Road. That'll be further detailed in the future. And I think the rest of it's really to sort of mention that there'll be some further work being done that's will be included in the structural plan to really detail out how the service infrastructure will work into the future. So not the most exciting one to end on, but it's necessary to give you the idea of it, and particularly help you understand where the sewage and the wastewater and potable water is being considered. So altogether, that comes to, if we combine all those layers we just went through, it produces the future urban structure plan, which is a one-stop plan to cover it all. But it's obviously a lot on it. So it's really great that you've been able to attend today and sort of see it pulled apart and explained. But a lot of information is contained, all the information presented tonight is contained on this plan. So it is worth going through it and understanding how it all comes together and reading the drawing key to try and understand it. But I think it's been a great effort by council and the team to really present this vision to you guys tonight and to the broader community through the consultation period. And we're really excited to hear what you think about it, and hopefully hear what you're excited about, what's great, what's maybe a bit challenging into the future. But I think that's it for me.
Yep, so I'll just quickly finish up with some next steps and how to get involved. So we'll just go to the next slide. There we go, perfect. So there'll be so there's obviously this session tonight, and there'll be another drop-in session that's occurring in person at the Haven Hall on Friday the 15th of December. So there's 2 time slots for that session. So you're welcome to drop in and have a chat with the council team if you want to ask further questions or hear a little bit more about the project. In terms of providing a submission to the future urban structure, if that's something that you're interested in doing, you could submit a form via the submission form on the online project page. You can email the strategic planning email address, and on the online project page, there's also an option for you to book a time to meet with a council officer. So I think, as Jasmine said at the beginning, if you had a sort of more property specific question or discussion you wanted to have, you might want to take up that opportunity to meet one-on-one with the council team. And then just wrapping up with the next steps on the next slide. So all of the feedback that we receive through this consultation process will be summarised in a community consultation summary document, which will also be released via that project page. And that will be the information that we use to inform the structure plan document, which will be launching in and starting to get underway early in the new year. And that structure plan will also be released for community comment. So there will be another round of community consultation still to come. So that is everything for us this evening, but hopefully that provided you with a bit more information on the project and where we're up to. And I think we've got a little bit of time for questions. Is that right, Jasmine?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks a lot for that overview, Emily and Jacob. I just wanted to reiterate that we are taking submissions until the 9th of February next year. So we do really want to see that feedback. And on that note, I'm just going to stop recording now so that we can open up to questions.